This park was not on our radar this year, and I'm not sure why it wasn't, because our few hours here were spectacular. Great rides, beautiful scenery, and human connection, meeting awesome people who love parks just as much as we do. I'm Michael, and this is Theme Parks and Humanity, a channel where we acknowledge the significance of theming while recognizing and highlighting the human experience at parks around the country. Eventually, you'll be hearing more from Ellie, my partner, as well, and we're two teachers who love theme parks and the people we meet at them. And with that in mind, let me tell you about our first time visiting Michigan's Adventure, which happened to be on their last day of operations for the 2025 season. So we've been on a fast-paced road trip that only allowed us to spend a few hours at 3 different parks, including Kings Island, where we got our final rides on Boo Blasters, the dark ride there. We also stopped in Detroit for a few days to meet family, including our awesome nephews who are fellow enthusiasts. And we ended our trip at Michigan's Adventure, where we rode some great wooden coasters and took in the beautiful scenery of Western Michigan. For a few weeks, Six Flags has been promoting this MVP, Most Valuable Pass sale. If you buy a gold or prestige pass, then you'd get access to 40 plus parks without having to get the all-park passport that they normally require to get admission to their locations that aren't your home park. We thought that was an awesome deal, so we decided to go for it. We had Six Flags Plus memberships, and we hadn't heard much about how those were going to change with the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger last year. So we thought we'd just cancel them and buy gold passes instead and just activate them at Kings Island on our way to Detroit. Of course, we did that and then got this email yesterday about how Six Flags is merging the Plus memberships with something called Gold Plus, which would be the same as the Gold Pass with extra perks. It is what it is. We'll probably just cancel those memberships since we already paid for the Gold Pass. Anyway, we stopped at Kings Island to activate our new passes and get our final rides on Boo Blasters, now permanently closed, before heading north. We'll have another video on that, as well as one on my solo trip to CJ Barrymore in the Detroit area. Since our passes were now ready to be used, we could stop at Michigan's Adventure for their final day of operations for the 2025 season. Unfortunately, they had to cancel their Fall Fest, called the Tricks and Treats Fall Fest, for the Halloween season. We don't like seeing things like this just get abruptly canceled, but if Six Flags, if this allows Six Flags and Michigan's Adventure to invest more in the park for the core season, then I don't know, it might be a good decision for the long term. What I heard is that they're giving Michigan's Adventure pass holders some passes to Cedar Point to make up for the loss of the last part of the season here at Michigan's Adventure. If you are a pass holder at Michigan's Adventure, leave a comment below. Let me know how you feel about that. So, final day of ops, and this is our first time here. We didn't know how beautiful this park was going to be. As soon as you take the turn from the road, you are confronted with the sheer size of Shivering Timbers. It's right there. I knew it was going to be big, but it was monstrous. Look at those cars for scale. We scanned our passes and parked in front of the Mad Mouse coaster, which is also visible from the parking lot, and proceeded through the entrance. After making our way in, there was this classic diner that matches the color of the Aero corkscrew coaster as you look straight ahead. And when you take a right, you'll notice that everything in the park is constructed around this lake, and it's just gorgeous here. Just look at that panoramic view as we walk out onto the pier. We took a moment to take that in before noticing the Loggers Run ride. It's a flume ride on the right side of that path. Then, of course, we head straight to Shivering Timbers. The queue for Shivering Timbers almost appeared like it was hidden. You really had to look off the path to see the sign for the ride, and lucky for us, the line wasn't long and the ops were so good. They had 2 trains, and the team was moving so quickly to secure those seatbelts and lap bars. Seriously, give these 2 money and lots of it. We got on the ride in the second to last row in less than 10 minutes, and wow, I knew this coaster was going to be great because I love big wooden roller coasters in general, but I was overwhelmed at how great it was. So, a 1998 CCI wooden roller coaster. Shivering Timbers sounds like it's a homophonic pun based on the phrase "shiver me timbers" that's in a lot of pirate-themed films. Anyway, you're out of your seat throughout this entire ride. It is paced so well, with the help of some 208 retract by RMC, and you feel like you're flying on this ride after that 121-foot drop. The giant hills in the first half look like they're reaching into the clouds, one 100 feet tall and another 95 feet tall. They give you that floater airtime, that weightlessness like you're on a hot air balloon or a space shuttle. I left my hands up the entire first ride, and those hills brought me so much joy. I had that candy store grin on my face. These hills remind me of the first two on the Voyage at Holiday World, but for the second half, the ride has a few lateral moments, like the Voyage and maybe El Toro, but it keeps delivering airtime on these smaller hills. Those hills hit hard by first tossing you out of your seat before you stay out of your seat. So this is the kind of ejector airtime that is more like maybe riding a hydrogen blimp, where you feel a massive explosion of airtime, and that subsequent floating doesn't feel quite as safe as it did on the first half when you were transferring into a burning blimp from the hot air balloon, which was nice and stable. And maybe it wasn't such a good idea, after all, to put all that fire near all that hydrogen. Yeah, I think that's the more accurate simile. I'm an ELA teacher, so you'll hear me use a lot of figurative language. In fact, if you've ridden Shivering Timbers, compare this ride with something else you have in mind. Put a simile in the comments. Just finish this sentence. I look forward to reading those. Anyway, the finale of Shivering Timbers includes this 630-degree counterclockwise helix that begins spiraling downward before traveling upward into the brakes. And I feel this is a great element to end the ride because it uses all its remaining momentum to slam you against the side of your seat. And there's 5,383 feet of track on Shivering Timbers, so your fun lasts a while. In fact, Shivering Timbers is the 4th longest wooden roller coaster in the world. Keep in mind you're going through this layout on PTC trains, so they're a little heavier than the newer Timberliners, and you can feel how heavy those trains are as you plummet down those drops. Yeah, I had to get a second ride, since the line was still relatively short. I got back on in the second to last row again, but this time there were more riders on the train. The second ride hit even harder than the first. So imagine all of what I just mentioned, put some jet packs in the back of that train, and add barrels of fuel to the fire. Absolutely amazing ride. We will be back to ride this again. After this, we meandered around a bit to take in the theming and have a look at all the other attractions on this side of the park. If you back up just a little, this section does have some Western-style frontier theming, including this mining set in which you can pan for gemstones, as well as this leather shop that looks like a general store. When you walk past Shivering Timbers, you'll see some flat rides straight ahead, including a scrambler and a Chance Rides Matterhorn ride. When you take a right, you'll also see a Chance Rides wave swinger called Flying Trapeze and a tilt-a-whirl. On the other side of that tilt-a-whirl, you can get a closer view of the Loggers Run drop as well. If you were just intent on rallying Shivering Timbers, and I know there's some of y'all out there that would do that, you could take a break between rides to do some flat rides in this area and spend all your time here in this frontier-themed area. When you exit Shivering Timbers, there's a train station just outside. We noticed 2 stations in the park, and this one happens to be located between Shivering Timbers and the other moderately sized wooden roller coaster, Wolverine Wildcat. You could take this train to the other side of the park, and I'll show that later in the video. The entrance for Wolverine Wildcat looked a bit like the Shivering Timbers entrance, with the loading platform being located behind this gated pathway. And from the queue, this ride is much more visible to riders. You can see a few of the final hills and turns right in front of you here. This line involved waiting a bit longer because it had one train and appeared that only one attendant was checking seatbelts and lap bars. Sometimes that happens due to staffing and all kinds of other things like staff getting sick and calling in and so on. If you get impatient in moments like this, that's totally human. Sometimes I do too, but understand that there are dozens and dozens of decisions being made before you get on your train. So try to take a moment, just observe your surroundings. In my opinion, looking at coasters off-ride is fun. Take a moment to do that. And for the one person here doing these ops, these older trains also involve more work because sometimes the restraints get stuck and the ride op has to release them for the person stuck in their seat, which happened a few times while we were waiting. So this isn't bad ops, it's just reality. And if you enjoy classic wooden coasters as much as we do, it's well worth the wait. So while we're on the topic of respecting ride operators and just enjoying your surroundings, let us show you another clip. This is some footage we took from the exit.
Make sure phones are put away. Make sure phones are put away. Phone battery put away.
Y'all, the ones with your phones, put them away. If I have to use my 7th grade teacher voice to tell you that, I will. Phones away. And if you need an explanation about why they're dangerous to have out on rides, here's why. It is easy to underestimate how forceful these rides are, and those forces will catch you off guard when you're least expecting it. I'm going to guess this ride affords around 3.5 G's of forces, so that's 3.5 times your body weight, which can yank your phone right out of your hand when you're going 55 miles per hour as it lands on someone sitting behind you, or perhaps someone outside the ride in the fast lane queue in this case. Do yourself a favor and don't take your phone out on roller coasters. It is never a good idea to do so. You can see that even in our video, we are getting our footage off-ride because this park does not allow on-ride footage. And even when footage is taken on-ride at other parks, you do it with special equipment. For example, a wrist mount or a chest harness in which you can use a screw to secure some kind of action camera that is built for this stuff. Phones are not currently built for this, and even the best ways of securing them on a chest harness, for instance, involve no integrated security pin like an action camera has, meaning they can still fly out of those with any amount of negative force. So don't try to sneak your phone or any other equipment for that matter on these rides at this park. With that said, let's talk about our ride on Wolverine Wildcat. This ride was built by the Den Corporation back in 1988, and there aren't many Den coasters left in the country. 1988 was a decade before Shivering Timbers was built, but it's a good transition to go from Shivering Timbers to this one because this one is a little more chill, but still thrilling. It begins with an 85-foot drop and has this traditional double out and back layout with several airtime hills and a few turnarounds. You'll get pops of airtime all over this ride, and it also has had some retracking. I've heard roller coaster enthusiasts call this a Frankenstein coaster because of all the different types of track it has on it. There's been some retracking by Martin and Vleming's Gravity Group with their pre-cut track, GCI with their Titan track, but I didn't feel the changes quite as abruptly as I've noticed them on other coasters with similar retracking. It really seemed to work well on this ride. This ride had a little wooden coaster character, but gave us a smooth ride. It was good fun. After our ride on Wolverine Wildcat, we took a walk around the park. We got some footage of Corkscrew, the Arrow, which is a clone of the one at Silverwood, which used to be at Knott's. You'll know this ride experience if you've ever been on the one at Cedar Point as well. This ride is always presented quite well. The loops and supports are visually appealing, and I really like the color that they chose to paint the track on this one. It matches the vibes of this part nicely. Something else I like about its presentation are all the trees scattered around the coaster. It's a nice contrast. It's touches like this that help me feel like I'm getting some kind of escape at a smaller park. You don't have to go all in like Disney to make me happy. The small things like this that offer nostalgia, beautification, and just nice scenery make me feel like I'm getting my escape. I'm away from my normal routine and in my happy place. Small parks have a way of doing this that makes visiting a park more low stakes and less stressful, which was especially great in our case since we only had a few hours to spend here. In fact, let us know whether you've been to any smaller amusement parks. Which ones did you go to and what was your experience? Tell us in the comments. We noticed Camp Snoopy, the children's area on the left. The flat rides were all Peanuts themed, so the adults taking their children here will get that feeling of nostalgia if they spent any time reading those comics in the newspapers or watching the Charlie Brown and Snoopy show growing up. Of course, there are a lot of newer Peanuts films and series that continue to keep this family area of the park relevant for children, including one that just came out last year. Although there has been some speculation that Six Flags was planning on retheming all the Camp Snoopy areas, which would mean no more Snoopy, Charlie Brown, Woodstock, and Pigpen themed rides like these. The latest news suggests they are actually renewing their contract for 5 more years. You know, I never put too much stock in the theme park news space since it's full of so much speculation, clickbait, and superlatives. I could see Six Flags wanting to make this more relevant for the children visiting these parks, perhaps after Peanuts has run its course, if that ever happens, but who knows? We'll see what's ahead. In this area, there are a few fun flat rides, as well as a little Woodstock Express coaster here. And if you're lucky, you could see this one dueling with Zach Zoomer, the family wooden coaster just behind it. On the way out of Camp Snoopy, we took a left and noticed the water park, and it was surprising to see it open on the final day. Guests looked like they were having a blast riding the water slides. We didn't have a lot of time to change and get into more queues, so we'll have to plan more time to go to the water park when we return next time. To our right, there was a miniature golf course near the lake, which I have definitely seen at family entertainment centers and places like Old Town in Florida, but not at an amusement park like this one. Very unique. On the left, there's a big sky coaster called the Ripcord. Check out this footage. This one is 180 feet tall and reaches speeds of 80 miles per hour. So if you love intense and thrilling rides, then you'll probably love this one too. It is an upcharge attraction, and at the time of our visit, I think it was $40 for one person, $50 in total for 2, and $60 in total for 3. Next to that, for those of you who are educators or planners like we are, or if you're an administrator who plans events, there's a very large pavilion that seats 3,000 people behind this ride. And if you call the park next May, you can take a group of students for $47 each, 10 of which goes to their meals. To my knowledge, they have enrichment activities as well. This is good to know for us teachers. We're often so busy planning, we rarely get the opportunity to look into these other engaging things the kids can do outside school. For one of the smallest Six Flags parks, Michigan's Adventure has a lot to do. In fact, when we walked farther, we noticed the Rapids ride was not operating, but there's a Vekoma SLC here called Thunderhawk, which was operating. I thought its red track contrasted nicely with all the greenery in this park, so we got a lot of off-ride footage of this one from a lot of different angles because it's just so visible from across the lake. This coaster has been operating at the park since 2008 after it was moved from Geauga Lake, a serial thriller, after that park closed. If you remember riding Serial Thriller, leave a comment down below and tell us about your experience. A lot of these suspended coasters have flying themes and bird-related themes, as the design is intended to make you feel a bit like you're flying, with the coaster's wheels being attached from underneath while your feet are dangling. Speaking of, I just heard confirmation yesterday that Batwing at Six Flags America, the last of Vecoma's Flying Dutchman coasters, has already given its last rides. I'm not sure if they needed a part for it, but since that park is closing anyway, they are not going to reopen it. We did go there recently, so we'll have a lot to say about our trip, since the community in Bowie, Maryland and the DC area is now losing their home park. As for Thunderhawk, this one is still open and delivering rides, although you won't get one until next operating season. Its stats: 109-foot drop, 2,260 feet of track involving a rollover, a sidewinder, and a double inline twist, classic Vekoma SLC elements, and it reaches speeds of nearly 50 miles per hour. So from there, we proceeded to the front, where we could get our final ride of the day on Zach Zoomer, their CCI family wooden coaster that opened in 1994. Zach Zoomer is named after the former park owner Roger Jordan's grandson, so his grandson's name must have been Zach. Very cool to have your own roller coaster named after you. If Zach is out there, tell us in the comments. Zach Zoomer has a classic out and back layout like the Woodstock Express coasters at other legacy Cedar Fair parks. There is a small drop, a few hills, and a few turnarounds. The drop is 41 feet, so you might not think this coaster delivers any airtime, but you would be mistaken. The trains on Zach Zoomer have buzz bars. Have a look at our recent Phoenix POVs to get an idea of what the buzz bar experience is like. These trains are a little smaller than Phoenix, so just watch your knees if you're an adult rider, and you may consider taking a whole row to yourself, since the ride vehicles are a bit snug. But this ride is fun. You will get airtime, since that buzz bar sits above your lap, leaving only the seat belt to keep you firmly in your seat. Don't sleep on this one. It's a solid wooden coaster and a good ride to end your day, as we did at Michigan's Adventure on the final day of operations for the 2025 season. We hope you enjoyed this video. Although we only had a few hours to spend here, we had a great time riding their wooden roller coasters, locating the immersive gyms in the park, and taking in all the scenery. One last comment on going on rides at Michigan's Adventure: put your phone away. Like this video, leave a comment to tell us about your experience or expectations of going to Michigan's Adventure. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And of course, subscribe for more videos like this one. We're a relatively small channel, so every subscription counts, and we sincerely appreciate your support. Final words: be good, take care of yourself, and have fun at the parks.